just to be. You hear it, not the sound around you, but the voice within. The one that never seems to stop. It hums, whispers, and occasionally shouts. It plans, worries, judges, creates. We call it thinking. And here's what they never told you. When you're thinking, you're not the one speaking. You're the one listening. Yes. Thinking is not your voice. It is the echo of everything you've heard, seen, feared, desired. We often believe that thinking is a creative act, that we are forming brand new ideas, inventing concepts from thin air and shaping the world with original thought. But look closely. Thinking, in its usual form, is not the beginning of something new. It is the echo of what has already been. The mind is not a blank canvas when we sit to ponder. It's a vast library, echoing with voices that aren't ours, filled with memories, fears, suggestions, opinions, songs we heard as children, the judgment of teachers, the warmth of praise, the sting of rejection. Thought is not so much a painter as it is a mirror, reflecting back the impressions life has left on us. When you think you're listening to those echoes, you're not necessarily the speaker, you're the audience. That inner monologue we all carry around. It's a remix, a blend of what you've been told, what you've seen, what you've wished for, and what you've feared. That voice may sound like you, but it's a clever impersonation. It carries the tone of your parents when you made a mistake. It mimics the crowd when you didn't fit in. It recites the rules society whispered in your ears. And every time you believe that voice, without question, you're listening, not deciding. You're following, not choosing. To truly see this, you must pay attention, not just to the content of your thoughts, but to their origin. Ask yourself, where did this belief come from? Why do I assume this will go wrong? Why do I keep playing out a scenario that hasn't even happened? You'll begin to notice a pattern. These aren't conscious creations, they're replays. Some you recorded decades ago, some only yesterday. But the mind has no sense of time. It tosses them all in the air, like confetti, and you're left to sweep them up, trying to make meaning. Take a simple example. Imagine someone walking down a hallway, and a group of people standing nearby glance in their direction and start laughing. Immediately the thought arises, they're laughing at me. But where did that thought come from? It wasn't created fresh. It was summoned by old echoes, maybe a memory of being mocked in school, or a belief that others are always judging. That thought didn't come from what is. It came from what was. In that moment, the person isn't seeing reality. They're hearing an echo. And if they believe it without question, they begin to live inside it. This is the trap of unconscious thinking. We mistake the echo for the present moment. We confuse the mind's commentary for truth. But when we begin to recognize that thoughts are echoes, not creations, something shifts. But when we begin to recognize that thoughts are echoes, not creations, something shifts. We no longer panic when the mind says something unkind. We don't collapse under its fear. We don't take every worry as a warning. We start to listen without attachment, to observe without absorption. We develop the ability to say, that's an old voice, or that's just a reaction, not reality. The beauty is, once we become aware that thinking is listening, we gain the space present moment with an open heart and a quiet mind. Silence is not about turning off the mind, nor is it about escaping thought. True silence, the kind that brings peace, insight, and freedom, is not the absence of thinking, but the presence of awareness. This is what we're rarely told. We grow up with the idea that peace means a quiet mind, as though thought itself were the enemy. We're taught to chase a mental void, a blank space, where no thought dares to enter. But thought in itself isn't the problem. It's our relationship to it. It's the way we cling to it, believe in it, react to it, as if every passing idea were a command or a truth that defines who we are. You can try to quiet your mind. You can sit in stillness, breathe slowly, repeat a mantra, or stare at a candle flame. You might succeed for a while, but eventually the thoughts return, uninvited, persistent, sometimes chaotic. That's because the mind, by nature, thinks. You wouldn't get angry at the heart for beating, so why get upset at the mind for thinking? The goal isn't to stop thought, it's to no longer be consumed by it, it's to watch without being swept away. The moment you become aware of a thought, not as something you are, but as something you're hearing, a shift happens. There's a gap. This awareness doesn't resist thought, nor does it obey it. It watches it with interest, curiosity, even amusement. It knows that a thought can be loud but wrong, persistent but irrelevant, seductive but untrue. It understands that most thoughts are just echoes of the past or projections of the future, neither of which exist right now. And because it sees this clearly, it doesn't need to react. It simply knows. And in that knowing, there is deep calm. Let me share a simple example. Imagine you are lying in bed at night, and a thought pops into your mind. What if I mess up tomorrow's presentation? That thought arrives like a train, and if you board it, it will carry you through tunnels of anxiety, playing out every possible failure, embarrassment, and consequence. And before you know it, your body is tense, your heart is racing, and sleep feels impossible. But now imagine something different. The thought appears, but instead of jumping on board, you see it. You say silently, "Ah, there's that fear again." You don't argue with it. You don't try to replace it with a happy affirmation. You don't suppress it. You simply see it, like watching a bird fly across the sky. And then it's gone. That's awareness. That's silence. The thought came that you were present. You didn't resist it, but you also didn't identify with it. You remained the sky, the heart of it. Silence is not about having no thoughts, but about not being entangled in them. It's the ability to sit amidst the inner noise and know this is not me. It's to watch the mind's activity, the way you might watch traffic on a road. You don't have to stop the cars, you just don't need to chase them. And in that space, something beautiful happens. A deeper intelligence begins to speak. Not in words, but in feeling, in stillness, in clarity. Insight arises. This is what they don't often tell you. You don't need to be thoughtless to be peaceful. You just need to be aware. Awareness doesn't fight the mind. It holds it gently, like a parent holding a restless child. Itself, not because it was forced to, but because it was finally understood. The mind is one of the most powerful tools we possess, but it is also one of the most misunderstood. It is capable of solving complex problems, creating beauty, imagining futures, and remembering the past. But as much as it can serve you, it can also enslave you. The real challenge lies in recognizing the difference, knowing when the mind is helping you and when it's leading you in circles. Because when the mind becomes your master, it can fill your life with anxiety, overthinking, hesitation, and fear. But when you are the master and the mind is your servant, you gain access to a freedom few people ever truly experience. Thought is like fire. It can warm your home or burn it to the ground. It depends entirely on how you use it or how much control you handed over to it. When you identify fully with your thoughts, when you believe that whatever your mind tells you is automatically true, you lose the ability to question its stories. Make no mistake, the mind tells stories constantly. It says, I'm not good enough. They don't like me. What if this goes wrong? Oh, I should have done better. And because the voice sounds like your own, you rarely stop to ask, is this voice even right? We aren't taught to observe the mind. We're taught to obey it. We're trained to live inside our heads, not to step back and see that the thoughts occurring in us are not necessarily chosen by us. Some thoughts are old wounds replaying themselves. Some are fears passed down from others. Some are just noise. But we treat them all as if they are laws. Real freedom begins when you start to notice this. When you can say, this thought isn't helpful, or this story doesn't serve me, you are no longer under its spell. You become something deeper than the mind. You become the awareness watching you. Let's say you're about to try something new. Maybe it's speaking in front of a crowd, applying for a job, or telling someone how you really feel. Suddenly your mind kicks in. What if I mess this up? But if the mind is your servant, you hear those same thoughts and say, thank you for your concern, but I'm doing this anyway. Here's a simple, real-world example. A man is walking across a narrow rope bridge high above a canyon. He's done it 100 times before. The structure is strong. But today, halfway across, his mind whispers, what if it snaps? What if you fall? His heart races, hands sweat, legs tremble. The bridge hasn't changed. The wind hasn't picked up. Nothing outside of him is different. But the mind has created a world of danger. If he listens and believes, he might panic, freeze, even fall. When you master this awareness, life becomes lighter. The noise doesn't stop, but it loses its power. And the moment you understand that, the mind becomes what it was always meant to be, a servant of your deeper self. Useful, brilliant. Wisdom doesn't arrive with a loud entrance. It doesn't come from frantic analysis or endless debate in the mind. It comes quietly, almost unnoticed, like a ripple on a still lake. The truth is, clarity is not the result of more thinking. It's what remains when you stop resisting what is. But this is something we're rarely taught. Instead, we're told to think harder, to figure it out, to plan, to worry, to strategize every little thing. And we're conditioned to believe that the more mental noise we generate, the closer we'll get to the answer. But in reality, that noise is often what clouds the answer entirely. Real clarity, real wisdom begins in stillness. It's immediate, it's intimate, it's truth without needing explanation. Most of us are so used to thinking primary tool that we try to use it for everything, even situations that don't require problem solving, but presence, is the moment you stop trying to swim upstream. It's the moment you stop pushing thoughts away or chasing better ones. It's not about controlling the mind, but about relaxing your grip on it. And when you do, when you let go of the compulsive need to think your way to safety or certainty, you discover something remarkable. Insight begins to rise on its own. Just like a pond reflects the sky only when it is still, the mind reflects truth only when it is quiet. Here's a simple example. Imagine a woman faced with a major decision. She's been offered a new job in another city, a higher salary, a step up the ladder, but something doesn't feel right. So she starts thinking and thinking. She makes lists. She asks for advice. She plays out scenarios in her head over and over. Days go by, and she feels more confused, not less. The more she thinks, the foggier it becomes. Eventually she decides to stop obsessing, just for a moment. She goes for a walk in nature. No headphones, no calls, just silence. And then, unexpectedly, something shifts. A quiet sense of knowing emerges, not a loud voice, not a dramatic realization, just a subtle inner clarity. We've been taught to value noise over quiet, effort over surrender, thought over presence. But the deeper truths of life don't arrive through force. They're revealed through softness, through space, through silence. Stillness isn't a void, it's not emptiness, it's a deep presence. And in that presence, you begin to see what was always there, just hidden under the noise. So if you're ever lost, confused, overwhelmed, don't think harder. We tend to believe. They're not stable. They're not even consistent. The truth is, you are not your thoughts. You are the one who hears them. The witness. The observer. The space in which they appear and disappear. Subtle shift from being inside the thought to observing it changes fear into curiosity. It changes emotional storms into passing weather. You no longer need your mind to be quiet to feel peace. You only need to stop treating every thought like it's the ultimate authority. When you learn to listen without automatically believing, you begin to find space between you and the noise. And in that space, there is power. Let's say you're walking into a meeting and suddenly a thought pops up. I'm not good enough to be here. That thought hits you like a wave. Maybe your chest tightens, your palms sweat. Now, if you believe the thought, without question, you carry it like a weight. You hold back. You doubt yourself. You shrink. The meeting becomes something to survive rather than engage in. But if you've practiced the art of witnessing your thoughts, you hear that same voice and pause. You don't push it away. You don't try to replace it with fake confidence. You simply notice it and ask, who is listening to this thought? Maybe you even smile a little because you recognize that voice. It's the same voice that showed up before your last job interview, before your first date, before you took your first risk. It's not a prophet. It's a pattern. This is what people don't tell you. Peace doesn't come from having no thoughts. That's not even realistic. The mind will always think, just like the lungs will always breathe. Peace comes when you stop being at war with thought, when you stop believing every single one of them as if they define you, and you are the sky. This space you become free, not because your mind is finally silent, but because you're no longer disturbed when it's noisy. You can listen to the chatter without being consumed by it. You can feel emotions without drowning in them. You can witness fear, doubt, sadness, and joy, and respond from a place of calm presence. This is the real art, to let the mind do what it does, but to remain rooted in something deeper, the awareness that listens, the stillness that watches. So the next time your thoughts start racing, pause. You're actually listening. The question is to whom? Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, imagine a river. It flows effortlessly, never doubting its path. It does not stop to question whether it should go left or right. It simply moves. But we, as thinking beings, often resist this natural flow. We hesitate, analyze, and overthink, trapping ourselves in a web of endless thoughts. The truth is, overthinking is an illusion, a trick of the mind that keeps us stuck in the past or fearful of the future. But life is not meant to be lived in hesitation. It is meant to be experienced. So, how do we stop overthinking and start truly living? Let's explore. Your mind is an incredible tool, capable of solving problems, analyzing situations, and creating wonderful ideas. But like any tool, it is meant to be used when needed and set aside when not. The problem arises when we mistake our thoughts for reality itself, allowing them to dominate our experience of life instead of using thinking as a helpful instrument. We become trapped inside it, endlessly replaying the past or worrying about the future. Imagine a carpenter who owns a hammer. The hammer is useful when driving nails into wood, but what if the carpenter carried the hammer around all day, hitting everything in sight, tables, chairs, even his own hand? It would be absurd. Yet this is exactly what happens when we allow our thoughts to run wild. We overuse the tool, mistaking its constant activity for something meaningful, when in reality much of it is just mental noise. Overthinking is the mind's way of trying to control life, to predict and solve problems before they happen. But most of these problems are imaginary. The mind plays out endless scenarios, rehearsing conversations, fearing outcomes, and seeking reassurance. But the truth is, thinking about something endlessly does not necessarily bring a solution. It often just creates stress, anxiety, and hesitation. The key to freedom is recognizing that you are not your thoughts. Just as you can observe the clouds in the sky without identifying as the sky, you can observe your thoughts without being consumed by them. When a negative or repetitive thought arises, instead of engaging with it or resisting it, simply notice it, acknowledge it, and let it pass. You don't need to wrestle with every thought that enters your mind. A simple example of this is a person learning to swim. Imagine someone standing in shallow water, panicking, convinced that they will sink. Their mind screams, "What if I drown? What if I can't do it?" In their desperation, they thrash around, struggling against the water. But the moment they stop resisting and trust that the water will hold them, they begin to float effortlessly. The same applies to our thoughts. The more we struggle with them, the more we sink into overthinking. But the moment we stop trying to control them, we find peace. Thinking is useful when it serves a purpose, when planning, creating, or solving real problems. But beyond that, it becomes a burden. True intelligence is knowing when to think and when to simply be. Life does not require constant analysis to be enjoyed. The sun rises without your permission. The flowers bloom without your input. And your heart beats without your control. Let life happen. Use your mind when needed, but don't let it use you. The present moment is the only reality that truly exists. The past is nothing more than a collection of memories. And the future is just a projection of possibilities that may never happen. Yet most people live either in the past, replaying regrets and mistakes, or in the future, worrying about things that might go wrong. In doing so, they miss the only thing that is real, the now. To embrace the present moment means to fully experience life as it unfolds, without being trapped in the endless loop of overthinking. It means paying attention to the sights, sounds, and sensations around you, instead of getting lost in the mind's chat. The irony of overthinking is that it makes people believe they are preparing for life, when in reality, they are avoiding it. Life is happening right now, and every moment spent overanalyzing it is a moment not truly lived. One of the biggest barriers to embracing the present is the belief that happiness exists somewhere in the future. People tell themselves, I'll be happy when I get that job, when I make more money, when I find the right partner. But when those things finally come, the mind immediately shifts to the next thing, never allowing true contentment. The cycle never ends. Because happiness is not found in the future, it is found in presence. The simple act of being fully engaged with what is happening right now brings a deep sense of peace and fulfillment. Consider a child playing with a toy. The child is not thinking about what happened yesterday or worrying about tomorrow. They are fully immersed in the joy of play, completely present. This is the natural state of human beings before they are conditioned to live in their minds. Adults often lose this ability, becoming so preoccupied with their thoughts that they forget to simply be. A simple example of embracing the present moment is eating a meal. Most people eat while scrolling through their phones, watching TV, or thinking about their to-do list. They barely taste their food, rushing through it as if it were just another task to complete. But imagine sitting down with a meal and truly experiencing it, feeling the texture, noticing the flavors, appreciating every bite. That is mindfulness. That is presence. When you do this, even the simplest moments become rich and fulfilling. Embracing the present moment is not about forcing yourself to stop thinking. It is about shifting your awareness from your thoughts to your experience. When you catch yourself lost in worries or regrets, gently bring your attention back to the now. Feel your breath. Listen to the sounds around you. Notice the warmth of the sun or the coolness of the air. The present moment is always there, waiting for you to return to it. The mind will always try to pull you into the past or push you into the future, but you don't have to follow it. True peace comes when you realize that right here, right now is all you ever need. Most people go through life believing they are in control of everything. Their future, their relationships, their success. They plan, strategize, and worry, trying to make sure things turn out exactly as they want. But control is an illusion. No matter how much you plan, life has its own way of unfolding, often in ways you never expected. The need for control comes from fear, the fear of uncertainty, failure, or loss. The mind believes that if it can predict every outcome and prepare for every scenario, it can prevent pain. But life is unpredictable by nature. The more you try to control every aspect of it, the more anxiety and frustration you create for yourself. Letting go of control does not mean giving up. It means trusting that life has its own rhythm, its own intelligence, and that you do not have to force everything into place. Think of a person trying to hold water in their hands. If they grip too tightly, the water slips through their fingers. But if they relax, the water rests gently in their palms. This is the nature of life. The more you try to control it, the more it resists. But when you surrender, things begin to flow naturally. One of the biggest areas where people struggle with control is in their relationships. They want people to act a certain way, to love them in a specific manner, to never change or leave. But human beings are not objects to be controlled. Love, friendship, and connection thrive when they are free, not when they are forced. When you let go of the need to control people, you begin to appreciate them for who they truly are, rather than who you want them to be. Another common area of control is the future. People obsess over their careers, their financial security, their long-term plans. While it is good to have goals, clinging too tightly to specific outcomes only leads to disappointment. The Truth is, you cannot control everything that happens, but you can control how you respond. Instead of resisting change, you can learn to adapt and flow with life's twists and turns. A perfect example of this is a surfer riding a wave. The surfer does not try to control the ocean. They simply adjust to the movement of the water. They go with the flow, making small adjustments, but they never fight against the wave. If they did, they would fall. Life is the same way. When you let go of the illusion of control and learn to flow with what comes, you find peace. Letting go does not mean you stop making efforts or setting goals. It means you stop resisting what is and start working with it. The moment you surrender to life's natural movement, you free yourself from the stress of trying to force things. You begin to live with a sense of ease, trusting that whatever comes your way, you have the strength to handle it. Perfection is an illusion, a moving target that always stays just out of reach. No matter how much you try to perfect something, whether it's your work, your relationships, or even yourself, there will always be another flaw to fix, another improvement to make. The more you chase perfection, the more you realize it never truly arrives. Instead of bringing satisfaction, it creates stress, anxiety, and self-doubt. The desire for perfection often comes from the fear of failure or judgment. People believe that if they get everything just right, they will be loved, respected, and successful. But this pursuit becomes a trap. Instead of taking action, they hesitate, overanalyze, and procrastinate, afraid that anything less than perfect is not good enough. They spend so much time refining, planning, and tweaking that they never actually start living. True growth and success come not from perfection, but from progress. It is far better to do something imperfectly than to never do it at all. The most skilled artists, writers, musicians, and entrepreneurs did not start as masters. They embraced imperfection, learned from their mistakes, and improved over time. The secret is not in getting everything right, but in having the courage to begin. Think about nature. A tree does not grow in perfect symmetry, yet it stands strong and beautiful. A river does not flow in a straight line, yet it carves its own path effortlessly. Nature thrives in imperfection, and so do we. The obsession with perfection is a human construct that prevents us from appreciating the beauty of things as they are. A great example of this is a potter making a clay bowl. If they spend too much time trying to shape it into a flawless form, they may overwork the clay until it collapses. But if they trust the process, embracing the little imperfections, the bowl takes shape naturally and beautifully. Often, the most unique and admired pieces of pottery are the ones with slight irregularities, because they carry character and authenticity. This applies to life in every way. Instead of waiting for the perfect moment, take the first step. Instead of trying to craft the perfect response, speak from the heart. Instead of aiming for the perfect outcome, enjoy the process. When you stop chasing perfection, you free yourself from the impossible standard of always being flawless. You allow yourself to be real, to make mistakes, and to grow. Perfection is not what makes life meaningful. Imperfection is. The most beautiful memories are often the unplanned ones. The most inspiring people are not perfect, but those who dared to be themselves. When you let go of perfection, you give yourself permission to truly live. So stop chasing an illusion. Do your best. Embrace the messiness of life and understand that you are already enough, exactly as you are. Thinking, planning, and analyzing have their place, but they are meaningless without action. Many people get stuck in overthinking, waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect idea, or the perfect conditions before they take the first step. But perfection never comes, and so they remain trapped in inaction. The truth is, no matter how small, action is always more powerful than thought. Even the tiniest step forward is better than standing still. The biggest enemy of action is hesitation. The mind creates endless excuses. What if I fail? What if I'm not ready? What if it doesn't work out? But all of these questions are based on fear, not reality. Action breaks this cycle. The moment you take even the smallest step, You prove to yourself that the fear was just an illusion. The key is to start, no matter how imperfectly. People often believe that motivation leads to action, but in reality, it's the other way around. Action creates motivation. When you take a small step, you build momentum, and each step fuels the next. Waiting to feel ready is a trap, because readiness comes from doing. Once you begin, things that seemed overwhelming start to feel manageable, and confidence grows naturally. Consider someone who wants to start exercising but feels intimidated. They might spend weeks researching workout plans, watching fitness videos, or waiting for the right time to begin. But none of that matters until they actually move. Instead of waiting, they could start with just 5 minutes of stretching or a short walk. This tiny action may seem insignificant, but it breaks the cycle of inaction. The next day, 5 minutes turns into 10, then into a habit. What once felt impossible becomes second nature. This principle applies to every area of life. Starting a business, learning a skill, improving relationships, or pursuing a dream. The initial step is always the hardest, but once it's taken, the path becomes clearer. Even if mistakes are made along the way, they are part of progress. No one gets everything right at the beginning, and that's perfectly fine. Action leads to learning, and learning leads to growth. A great example of this is an artist facing a blank canvas. They might hesitate, fearing they won't create something good. But if they simply pick up a brush and make the first stroke, no matter how simple, the fear fades. That first stroke leads to another, and soon a painting begins to take form. The masterpiece does not come from waiting, it comes from starting. Life rewards those who take action. Instead of endlessly thinking about what you could do, just do something, anything. Send the email, make the call, write the first sentence, take the first step. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to begin. Because once you start moving, you realize that progress is not about thinking, it's about doing. Surrender is often misunderstood. People think it means giving up, being passive, or letting life walk over them. But real surrender is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is the ability to let go of resistance and trust in the natural flow of life. When you surrender, you stop fighting battles that don't need to be fought. Stop clinging to things that are beyond your control, and open yourself to peace, freedom, and possibilities you never imagined. Most suffering comes from resistance. The mind's refusal to accept things as they are. We resist change, resist uncertainty, resist discomfort, thinking that if we just push harder, we can bend life to our will. But life does not work that way. The more we resist, the more we struggle. True peace comes when we stop trying to control everything and learn to flow with life instead of against it. Surrender does not mean inaction. It means acting from a place of trust rather than fear. It means doing your best but letting go of the need to force a specific outcome. It means understanding that no matter how much you plan, worry, or try to control things, life will unfold as it is meant to. The key is to move with it rather than against it. A perfect example of surrender is a person caught in a rip current while swimming in the ocean. Their instinct is to fight against the current, to swim harder, to struggle against the pull, but this only drains their energy and makes the situation worse. The best way to survive a rip current is counterintuitive. Stop fighting. Instead of resisting, they must relax, float, and let the current carry them out until they can swim to safety at the right moment. The ocean is far stronger than any swimmer, and surrendering to its force is not giving up. It is the only way to survive. Life is like the ocean. There are currents we cannot control, unexpected changes, losses, setbacks. Fighting them only exhausts us. But when we surrender, we find new paths, new opportunities, and a sense of peace that struggling can never bring. Surrendering does not mean abandoning your dreams or not putting in effort. It means taking action without attachment to the outcome. It means accepting what is instead of constantly wishing things were different. When you surrender, you allow life to guide you rather than trying to force it into your limited idea of how it should be. Some of the greatest moments in life come when we stop trying to control everything. The love that arrives when we least expect it. The opportunity that comes from a door we never planned to open. The peace that settles in when we finally let go of what we cannot change. When you practice the art of surrender, you do not lose control. You gain freedom. You step out of resistance and into the natural rhythm of life where things unfold in their own perfect way. Life is not a problem to be solved, it is a reality to be experienced. Let go of the overthinking, the doubts, and the fears. Be like the river. Flow, trust, and embrace the beauty of the unknown. And when your mind tries to pull you back into its endless cycle of what ifs, simply smile and remind yourself, I am here. I am alive. That is enough now. Go and live. Ladies and gentlemen, isn't it strange that the more we try to control life, the more chaotic it becomes? Like trying to hold water in your fist. The tighter you grip, the faster it slips through your fingers. We live in a world that tells us to chase, to hustle, to care deeply about how we're seen, what we achieve, who approves of us. But what if I told you that the secret to peace, to success, to clarity is to stop caring, not in a reckless way,